What if the person you trusted most turned out to be hiding a secret that could change the world forever? Detective Emma Carter had asked herself questions like that 1,000 times in her 10-year career with the Phoenix Police Department. But never once did she imagine she'd ask it while walking into the most guarded private residence in America, the Arizona desert villa of tech titan Elon Musk. Tonight, under a moon as sharp as a blade, she wasn't here for rumors or paparazzi drama. She was here because someone, somewhere, claimed the world's most powerful innovator was hiding something beneath his home. Something dangerous. And Emma Carter didn't ignore danger. Perimeter secure. Sergeant Collins crackled through her earpiece. No movement, no heat signatures except the team. Emma tightened her grip on her flashlight and exhaled. The desert air was thin, cold, carrying the scent of creosote and dust. This was no ordinary search warrant. It was the kind politicians whispered about and intelligence agencies pretended not to know. Her partner, Officer Daniel Reyes, glanced at her. Last chance to say this is a bureaucratic mess and walk away. She forced a small breath of humor. And missed the chance to search Elon Musk's basement? Not a chance. The main gate, a slab of reinforced steel and titanium, slid open with a whisper, quiet hiss. Two of Musk's private security guards, dressed in sleek, unmarked tactical gear, stood stone-faced, their expressions unreadable. They didn't speak, only gestured them forward. The driveway was a smooth black ribbon curving through a meticulously designed landscape of Martian red rock and alien-looking cacti. It felt less like a home and more like a landing pad for a spaceship. The villa itself was a masterpiece of minimalist architecture, all glass and sharp angles, glowing softly against the dark expanse of the desert. "This is insane, Emma," Reyes murmured, his voice low. "The warrant is based on an anonymous tip, an email. This could ruin us." "Or it could save us," she countered, her eyes scanning every shadow, every glint of light off the glass walls. The anonymous source had been specific, too specific to ignore. The email contained schematics, geological surveys, and a single chilling phrase: "He's not building cars down there." The front door opened before they reached it, revealing a woman in a crisp suit. She introduced herself as Lena Petrova, Musk's head of security. Her smile was polished, but her eyes were like chips of ice. "Detective Carter, we've been expecting you. Mr. Musk is unavailable, but he has instructed us to give you our full cooperation." "We'd like to start with the sublevels," Emma said, cutting straight to the point. Petrova's smile didn't falter. "Of course, this way." She led them through a cavernous living space. The furniture was sparse, the art was abstract, and a single massive window offered a breathtaking view of the star-dusted desert. It felt cold, sterile, like a museum. They passed a grand floating staircase and stopped in front of a seemingly solid wall of polished concrete. Petrova placed her palm on a nearly invisible panel. There was a faint click, and a section of the wall receded, revealing a private elevator. "Service elevator to the labs," Petrova explained. "Mr. Musk values his privacy." As the elevator descended, a wave of pressure pushed against their eardrums. It was a deep, silent plunge into the earth. "How far down does this go?" Reyes asked, his usual bravado fading. "Far enough," Petrova replied cryptically. The doors opened into a hallway that looked like something out of a science fiction film. The walls were a sterile white, lit by strips of cold LED light. The air hummed with the thrum of unseen machinery. "The server farms," Petrova said, gesturing to a series of glass-enclosed rooms filled with blinking racks of hardware. "Processing data for Neuralink and SpaceX." "That's not what we're here for," Emma stated, her gaze fixed on a heavy-duty blast door at the end of the hall, marked with a biohazard symbol. "That area is a clean room," Petrova said, stepping in front of it. "Access is restricted. The atmospheric conditions are delicate." "Our warrant isn't," Emma replied, her voice firm. "Open it." For the first time, a flicker of something, annoyance, fear, crossed Petrova's face. She hesitated, then pressed her thumb to a scanner. The heavy door hissed and slid aside, revealing a small decontamination chamber. They stepped inside, and a blast of purified air washed over them. Another door opened, and the hum of machinery intensified into a low guttural roar. They had arrived. The chamber was immense, a concrete cathedral carved out of the bedrock. In the center, suspended by a web of cables and conduits, was a sphere. It was massive, at least 50 feet in diameter, constructed from a seamless, matte black material that seemed to drink the light. The surface was covered in geometric patterns that pulsed with a soft, internal blue-white luminescence. It wasn't a machine, it felt alive. "What is that?" Reyes breathed, his awe mixed with terror. "Project Tesseract," Petrova said, her voice now flat, devoid of its earlier corporate polish. "The next stage of human evolution." Emma walked forward, drawn by the strange energy emanating from the sphere. It hummed not just in her ears but in her bones, a deep resonant frequency that vibrated through the very soles of her boots. Around the base of the sphere, scientists in clean suits moved with purpose, monitoring screens filled with incomprehensible equations and biological data. "It's a gateway," Emma realized aloud, her detective's mind piecing together the impossible. "This isn't a server farm, this is a portal." Petrova finally dropped the facade. "To where, detective, is not your concern." Suddenly, alarms blared, red lights flashed, bathing the cavern in a hellish glow. "Containment breach," a scientist screamed over the intercom. "Energy levels are spiking." The pulsing blue light on the sphere's surface began to race, the patterns shifting and contorting at a dizzying speed. A deep, resonant tone filled the air, growing in intensity until it was a physical force pressing in on them, making their teeth ache. "What's happening?" Reyes yelled, drawing his weapon. "He knew you were coming," Petrova said, her face pale. "This wasn't a search. It was a catalyst." The sphere began to crack. Not like breaking glass, but as if reality itself was tearing apart. A fissure of pure, blinding white light appeared on its surface, widening, spilling impossible colors into the room. From within the light, something began to emerge. It wasn't a creature or a machine. It was a shape, a presence, a silhouette that defied geometry and perception. The air grew cold, and the smell of ozone mixed with something else, something ancient and alien. "Fall back," Emma screamed, pulling a stunned Reyes toward the exit. "Seal the chamber." But Petrova wasn't moving. She was staring at the emerging entity, a look of religious fervor on her face. "You don't understand," she whispered. "He's not bringing something through. He's letting us out." Emma didn't have time to process the words. The entity was solidifying, taking a form that was vaguely humanoid but impossibly tall, its limbs too long, its features indistinct and shifting like smoke. It turned its head, and Emma felt its gaze upon her, an intelligence vast, ancient, and utterly indifferent. The anonymous email flashed in her mind. He's not building cars down there. No, he was building a new god, or waking up an old one. As they scrambled back into the decontamination chamber, the blast door slamming shut behind them, the last thing Emma saw was the being reaching a long, shadowy hand toward Lena Petrova. Not with violence, but with an invitation. The search warrant was a piece of paper. What they had found was a declaration of war on reality itself. And deep beneath the Arizona desert, the world they knew had just ended. The real question was, what was beginning? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this story, you're not going to want to miss what happens next. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you're the first to know when the next chapter drops. Let me know in the comments what you think is emerging from the Tesseract. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. They approached the villa, its sleek lines cutting a sharp silhouette against the twilight sky. Silent security drones were perched like steel hawks atop walls of sand-colored stone, their unblinking eyes watching everything and nothing. The massive front door, a work of art in itself, was already ajar. Musk wasn't home. According to the warrant, he wasn't scheduled to arrive for hours. or so they thought. Inside, the villa was almost unsettlingly quiet, the kind of silence that presses in on you. Not a single family portrait hung on the walls, not a random coffee mug was left on a counter. There was just modern art, gleaming glass surfaces, and the low, constant hum of the air filtration system. It didn't feel lived in. It felt staged, like a museum exhibit of a home. Creepy, Reyes muttered under his breath, his voice swallowed by the cavernous space. Rich people call this minimalist, Emma replied, her eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. But she wasn't fooled. She had studied billionaires before, profiled their habits, their quirks. The truly wealthy didn't live simple lives. They just hid the complexity behind layers of curated simplicity. It was a performance, and this was the stage. They moved methodically, a practiced team of shadows in the sterile environment. They combed through the rooms, their training taking over. They were scanning the walls for secret compartments, looking for the tells, the inconsistencies, anything that didn't fit the perfect cold picture. The living room was a void of white leather and chrome. The kitchen was a chef's dream, but the appliances looked like they had never been touched. Not a single fingerprint marred their polished surfaces. They continued their search, moving deeper into the heart of the sterile mansion. Each room was a carbon copy of the last, beautiful, empty, and soulless. It was like walking through an architectural magazine, not a home. Emma ran a gloved hand along a bookshelf. The books were all classics bound in expensive leather, but their spines were uncreased, their pages seemingly untouched. Props. All of it. Finally, they reached the basement door. It was a stark contrast to the elegant design of the rest of the house, a reinforced steel slab, cold and imposing, with a biometric access panel glowing faintly beside it. This was the fortress within the fortress. Except tonight, it hung unlocked. The heavy door was slightly ajar, as if someone had left it open for them, as if someone wanted them to find what was inside. Collins joined them, his face pale, a line of sweat gathering above his brow despite the chilled, recycled air. He wiped it away with the back of his hand. "Anonymous tip says this is where it gets interesting," he whispered, his voice tight with a mix of fear and excitement. The tip was all they had, a cryptic message that had led them here, to this impossible situation. Emma stared at the dark gap beyond the door. The air that seeped out felt colder, different. She tapped the steel surface with her knuckle, the sound a dull, final thud in the oppressive silence. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. "Let's find out." The basement was nothing like the pristine upper levels. It was a maze of concrete and exposed wiring. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and something else, something metallic and vaguely organic. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing servers humming in racks, their blinking lights like 1,000 tiny eyes. This was the villa's central nervous system, the hidden complexity Emma knew had to exist. "This is more than just a home server," Reyes said, his tech expertise kicking in. "This is a data farm, military-grade encryption, custom cooling. What is he hiding down here?" He plugged a device into one of the terminals, his fingers flying across the keys. Lines of code scrolled across his small screen. "The security is insane, but it's been bypassed. Someone's left a back door wide open." Emma's attention was drawn to the far end of the room. A single light illuminated a workstation. Unlike everything else in the house, this space was messy. Schematics were scattered across a desk. Strange metal components lay in half-finished assemblies, and a coffee mug, the first one they'd seen, sat with a dark ring of residue at the bottom. It was used. Someone had been here. Recently. On a large monitor, a single video file was open. The thumbnail showed a grainy, night vision image of a desert landscape. Emma's heart hammered in her chest. She gestured to Collins. "Play it." Collins hesitated for a second, then clicked the mouse. The video flickered to life. It was raw footage, shaky and chaotic. It showed a clandestine operation, figures in tactical gear moving under the cover of darkness. Then the camera focused on a piece of debris, half buried in the sand. It was a curved piece of metal, non-terrestrial in its design. Unmistakably part of a ship, but not one made by human hands. Roswell? Reyes breathed, his eyes wide. That's just a conspiracy theory. Is it? Emma countered, her gaze fixed on the screen. The footage wasn't a hoax. It was too real, too detailed. As the video continued, it showed the recovery of not just wreckage, but something else. Something being loaded into a containment unit. Something that was not human. Suddenly, a new window popped up on the screen, obscuring the video. It was a live feed from a different camera. A man was sitting in a leather chair watching them. He had a knowing, almost amused smile on his face. It was Musk. He wasn't on his way. He was already here, watching their every move. A calm, synthesized voice filled the room, emanating from speakers they hadn't noticed. "Investigators," it said, the voice smooth and devoid of emotion. "Welcome. I trust you're finding the tour illuminating." It wasn't a live voice. It was a recording, triggered by their presence. "What is this?" Collins demanded, looking around the room as if expecting Musk to step out of the shadows. The recorded voice continued, calm and unbothered. "What you've found is merely the introduction, a little breadcrumb I left for the curious. The real truth is far more complex than a few pieces of old wreckage." On the screen, Musk leaned forward, his recorded image staring right through the camera right at them. "You were led here for a reason. Not by an anonymous tip, but by me. I need people who can see past the obvious, who aren't afraid to look in the basement. The game has changed, and the original players are no longer in control." The video feed of the desert vanished, replaced by a complex star chart, showing trajectories and flight paths that originated from far beyond their solar system. Red alert icons pulsed over several locations on Earth. "They're not just coming," Musk's voice said, a new urgency in its tone. "They're already here. And you've just been drafted into the war. The real raid isn't here on my home. It's on our world." The main lights in the basement suddenly flashed on, blinding them. Alarms began to blare throughout the villa. They were trapped, not by law enforcement, but by the man they had come to investigate. The hunter had become the hunted, and the prey was offering them a seat at a table they never even knew existed. Emma looked at her team, their faces a mixture of shock and dawning realization. Her knuckles were white where she gripped her flashlight. This wasn't about tax evasion or corporate espionage anymore. This was about everything. What do you think they should do next? Follow Musk's cryptic path or try to escape and report their unbelievable findings to a world that would never believe them? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching this story unfold. If you're hooked and want to see what happens next, make sure to hit that like button and definitely subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next part of this mystery. We have a lot more to uncover. See you in the next video. The basement lights flickered as we descended the old metal stairs, each step echoing in the oppressive quiet. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of damp concrete and something else. Something metallic, almost sterile. The floor beneath our feet pulsed with a low, steady vibration, like the hum of distant, powerful machinery. Reyes, ever the pragmatist, swept his scanner across the bare walls, its digital chirp swallowed by the cavernous space. And then we saw it. At the far end of the basement, set into the rough concrete, was a seamless panel of polished steel. It was perfect, unnervingly so. There were no hinges, no handles, no seam where it met the wall. It didn't belong here. Reyes ran his scanner over the surface. The device whined, its readings erratic. "There's no visible lock mechanism," he said, his voice tight. "But my readings are off the charts. This is a door." Collins, standing guard by the stairs, shifted his weight. "Or a vault," he muttered, his hand instinctively moving closer to the sidearm holstered at his hip. This whole situation felt wrong, a dissonance we couldn't quite place. We were supposed to be investigating a simple seismic anomaly in a suburban home. This was anything but simple. I moved forward, drawn by an unexplainable curiosity. I pressed my palm against the cold, smooth steel. It was like touching a block of ice, devoid of any warmth, any life. But the vibration was stronger here, a deep thrumming that resonated through my bones. "Collins," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. "Get me the leverage tools, the pry bar, the spreader." As Collins turned to retrieve the heavy kit, a soft mechanical click echoed through the basement. It was crisp, precise, and utterly out of place. We all froze. The steel panel. It began to slide open. It moved with a slow, silent grace that defied its apparent weight and size, retracting into the wall without a single shudder. A draft of chilled air washed over us, carrying with it a scent I couldn't identify, clean, like ozone after a lightning strike. And with the air came that sound, no longer a faint vibration but a distinct hum. It was low and powerful, a rhythmic pulse like a colossal heartbeat deep beneath the earth. Reyes took a cautious step back, his eyes wide. "No way," he whispered, shaking his head. "That does not open by itself. We didn't trigger any mechanism." I swallowed, the cold air drying my throat. A chilling realization settled over me. Someone's watching us. We weren't just discoverers. We were being observed, perhaps even invited. Collins was back at my side, his leverage tools forgotten. He looked from the dark opening to me, a silent question in his eyes. The mission parameters were clear. Observe, document, do not engage unknown variables without clearance. But we were past that now. The variable had engaged us. "Ready?" Collins whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum. I gave a single, sharp nod. There was no turning back. We stepped through the threshold one after the other, moving from the dim basement into a new kind of darkness. A narrow tunnel stretched out before us. It wasn't made of concrete, but the same sterile, metallic material as the door. The only light came from thin blue strips embedded in the floor, casting long, eerie shadows that danced with our movements. The tunnel sloped downwards, a steady, relentless descent into the earth, deeper and deeper. This wasn't a wine cellar or a forgotten bomb shelter. This was infrastructure, clean, precise, and technologically advanced beyond anything we should have found under a suburban house. The air grew colder, the humming louder, more encompassing. It felt like we were walking down the throat of some great sleeping beast. Halfway down the sloping corridor, a gut feeling made me stop. I turned not to look back at the door, which was now a distant rectangle of dim light, but to face the small drone hovering silently behind us. The hummingbird, we called it. Official protocol for high-risk entry, record everything. Every step, every word, every discovery is documented for the debriefing. It's a tool for analysis, a black box in case things go sideways. But tonight, looking into its unblinking lens, I wanted more than just documentation. I wanted connection. I needed to do more than just record what we found. I needed to record what we felt. In case this recording is all that's left. So, this is for the record, but it's also for anyone who finds this. We are approximately 100 feet below ground, descending into an unknown structure. The air temperature is dropping, and the energy signature is unlike anything in our database. It feels ancient, but also impossibly advanced. My name is Dr. Emma Aris. With me are Agent Reyes and Officer Collins. We are proceeding with extreme caution. But we are proceeding. The pull of the unknown, the need to understand what this is stronger than our fear. Whatever is down here, it knew we were coming. It opened the door for us. The question is why? Are we guests? Or are we walking into a trap? We keep moving. The tunnel continues its descent. The blue lights on the floor seem to pulse in time with the hum, a steady, hypnotic rhythm. The walls are seamless, no rivets, no welds. It's like the entire structure was extruded from a single piece of impossible metal. Reyes keeps his scanner active, but the readings are a chaotic mess. "It's like trying to measure a hurricane with a rain gauge," he said a few moments ago. "The energy here is overwhelming everything. The feeling of being watched hasn't faded. It's intensified. It's not a pair of eyes on your back, it's a sense of pervasive awareness, as if the very walls are conscious of our presence. It's a humbling, terrifying sensation. Every instinct is screaming at me to turn back, to run back up that tunnel to the familiar dust and damp of the basement. But my scientific curiosity, the part of me that has driven my entire life, won't let me. What is the source of the hum? What is this structure? Who built it and for what purpose? These questions are a current, pulling us deeper. We have to know, even if it's the last thing we ever find out. For now, we continue our descent into the blue-lit dark, following the heartbeat in the earth. Keep watching. We'll show you what we find. I promise. If you're seeing this, it means the hummingbird made it out. It means you need to know what's down here. Stay with us. The descent continues. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Before we dive in, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. This story, it might just spark a new beginning for someone out there. I also want to ask you something. What is that one thing that always pushes you forward even when things get tough? Share it below. I'd love to read your answers. Sometimes when things get overwhelming, I talk to this camera. Not always for a vlog, but just to get my thoughts out. It's a habit I picked up when I was young, a way to ground myself. It started the night I lost my little brother, Noah. I was 12. I remember holding my mom's old camcorder, my voice barely a whisper, just saying over and over, "If someone watches this one day, just know I tried. I tried everything." That night changed my entire world. It carved something deep inside me, a vow that I would never, ever be powerless again. Never again would I stand by and watch someone fall without doing everything in my power to save them. It was a promise I made to a 12-year-old girl who felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. And tonight feels a lot like one of those nights. The air is thick with the same kind of tension, the same feeling that everything is about to change. It's a feeling I know all too well. We finally reached the bottom of the descent, the air growing colder, heavier. The narrow passage we'd been navigating opened up, revealing a small, stark chamber. The walls were cold, unforgiving concrete. In the center of the far wall, a single digital panel flickered with a faint green light. But it was the door that stole my breath. A massive circular vault door sealed shut dominated the room. Etched into its metallic surface was a symbol I'd never seen before. It was intricate, almost ancient-looking, a stark contrast to the modern tech surrounding it. A palpable sense of finality hung in the air, as if this was a point of no return. Reyes, who had been silent for most of the descent, stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the symbol. He was the expert on the corporation we were investigating, knowing every division, every logo, every secret project. Or so we thought. He stared at the emblem, his brow furrowed in confusion. "That's not a company division," he said, his voice low and certain. "I know everyone, every logo, every subsidiary. This is something else." My pulse began to race, a frantic drum against my ribs. The mystery was deepening, pulling us further into the unknown. "What's behind this?" I asked, my voice tight, directed at anyone who might have an answer. The silence that followed was deafening, filled with 1,000 unspoken fears. Before anyone could even attempt a guess, a sound echoed from the tunnel we'd just exited. Footsteps, deliberate, steady, and getting closer. Instinct took over. I spun around, my hand automatically going to the holster at my hip, my heart pounding in my chest. All our preparations, all our stealth, had been for nothing. Someone had followed us. The sound grew louder, reverberating off the concrete walls, each step amplifying the tension in the room. We weren't alone anymore. And then, he appeared in the mouth of the tunnel. It wasn't what I expected. There was no security detail flanking him, no robotic escort clearing his path. It was just a man. He was dressed in simple, dark clothes, and a fine layer of dust coated his sleeves, as if he had rushed here, not caring about the dirt or the journey. He paused at the edge of the chamber, his eyes sweeping over us over the vault door, his expression unreadable. The air crackled with anticipation. Who was he? an ally, an enemy, the architect of this entire mystery? One thing was certain. The confrontation we had been trying to avoid had just found us. The real story was just beginning. This is where we're at. A sealed vault, an unknown symbol, and a mysterious stranger who seems to hold all the cards. I don't know what happens next, but I made a promise to a 12-year-old girl a long time ago. I don't break my promises. We're going to see this through no matter what lies behind that door. Thank you all for being on this journey with me. Your support means more than you know. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. The name alone commanded attention. Elon Musk. In the sterile silence of the underground facility, every officer froze. Not a single breath dared to disturb the tense air. For what felt like an eternity, he didn't speak. His gaze, sharp and analytical, drifted past Detective Emma Carter, past the armed tactical team, and settled on the massive, circular vault door. In that moment, something in his usually inscrutable expression fractured. Was it fear? Deep, gnawing regret? The cold, hard glint of calculation? Or perhaps it was an unsettling cocktail of all three, swirling in the depths of his eyes. "Detective Carter," he finally said, his voice a low, quiet rumble that seemed to be pulled from the very core of the earth. "You weren't supposed to find this." The polished metal of Emma's badge pinned to her chest suddenly felt heavier than it ever had before. It was a symbol of order, of law, in a place that now felt entirely outside its jurisdiction. "Is there a threat here, Mr. Musk?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tremor she felt in her gut. "A threat?" A dry, humorless sound escaped his lips. It wasn't a laugh, more like the scrape of rust on steel. His voice was laced with an impossible weariness, the sound of a man who had carried the weight of a secret for far too long. "No, not a threat, a plan, a last resort." Emma's mind raced. A last resort for what? For humanity? For himself? The questions piled up, each one more alarming than the last. "Then why the tunnel?" she pressed, gesturing to the sprawling complex they had uncovered. "Why all this secrecy? This looks like more than just a private project." He didn't answer her directly. The silence stretched thick and suffocating. Instead of words, he offered action. He walked with a determined, almost resigned gait to the sleek digital panel embedded in the wall beside the vault. Without a word of explanation, he pressed his thumb to the scanner. A soft chime echoed, and with a hiss of depressurizing air, the colossal circular door began to retract into the wall. Inside, a long corridor was revealed, bathed in a pale, sterile white light that seemed to hum with latent power. It wasn't just a tunnel. It was a gateway. To where Emma couldn't even begin to imagine. She took a tentative step forward, her hand instinctively resting on the grip of her sidearm. "You're going to show us." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Musk let out a long, slow exhale, the sound of a man surrendering to the inevitable. "I suppose I am." He turned, his face a mask of grim acceptance, and gestured towards the glowing portal. "Welcome, Detective, to Project Ark." As Emma and her team followed him into the light, the heavy vault door hissed shut behind them, sealing them in. The air inside was different. Cool, clean, with a faint metallic tang. The corridor wasn't just a hallway. Its walls were lined with transparent panels. Behind the panels, suspended in a shimmering gel-like substance, were countless seeds, vials of DNA, and digital archives glowing with data streams. It was a library of life itself. "This is a seed vault," one of the younger officers whispered in awe. "More than a seed vault," Musk corrected, his voice echoing slightly in the confined space. "This is the genetic and cultural blueprint of humanity. Everything we are, everything we've ever created. Art, science, literature, the DNA of every known species on Earth." Emma stopped, her eyes wide as she took in the sheer scale of the operation. "Why? Why go to such lengths?" Musk finally turned to face her fully. The weariness in his eyes was replaced by a fiery intensity. "Because of what's coming, Detective. Something I've seen through my telescopes, something my probes have confirmed. An extinction-level event. Not in 1,000 years, not in 100, but soon. Sooner than anyone is prepared for. He pointed down the corridor towards a second, even larger chamber. This ark isn't just about preservation. It's about continuation. This is a lifeboat. They reached the end of the corridor and entered a vast, cavernous dome. In the center, bathed in the same ethereal light, was a spacecraft. It was unlike any vessel Emma had ever seen. It was less a rocket and more a self-contained ecosystem, a sleek, silver seed designed to travel through the void. "You built a starship," Emma breathed, the words barely audible. "I built a chance," he countered. "A chance for humanity to survive itself, to survive the universe. When the time comes, this ship will carry the contents of this ark and a small, select crew to a new home. A planet we've identified in the Kepler system. A new Earth." The weight of his words settled on Emma. This wasn't the hideout of a criminal or an eccentric billionaire's folly. This was a desperate, audacious gamble to save the human race. The secrecy, the immense resources, it all clicked into place. "Who gets to go?" she asked, the question hanging in the air like a death sentence for the billions who would be left behind. A flicker of the old pain, the regret she had seen earlier, crossed his face. "That," he said softly, "is the part of the plan that keeps me awake at night. The part I hoped no one would ever have to find out." He looked from the ship to Emma, and for the first time she didn't see a titan of industry or a visionary genius. She saw a man burdened by a terrible choice, a modern-day Noah standing before his ark, waiting for the rain to begin. The fate of humanity rested in this secret place deep beneath the earth, and she had just stumbled right into the heart of its final, desperate act. The world above them continued, oblivious. But down here, in the silent glow of the ark, the clock was ticking. And Emma Carter was now a part of its countdown. What do you think happens next? Let me know your theories down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that challenge what you think you know. Thanks for watching. The door behind them sealed shut with a thunderous thud, making Collins jump. Musk glanced at him, his expression unreadable. "There's no turning back from this point." "Is that a threat?" Reyes snapped, his hand instinctively moving towards the sidearm holstered at his hip. "No," Musk murmured, his voice a low rumble that seemed to be absorbed by the thick, metallic walls. "It's a warning." Emma's stomach tightened. She had seen suspects bluff, brag, panic, but Musk didn't look like any of those. He looked burdened, like a man carrying the weight of what came next for humanity. He wasn't a criminal cornered. He was a gatekeeper, grimly holding a key he wished he never had to turn. She studied his face, the lines etched around his eyes telling a story of sleepless nights and impossible decisions. This wasn't about ego or power. This was about something far bigger, something that had bent this brilliant, enigmatic man into a shape of solemn duty. She drew a breath, the recycled air tasting stale and electric, and stepped into the unknown. Lights flickered ahead, casting long dancing shadows that played tricks on the eye. A distant hum vibrated through the soles of her boots, a rhythmic pulse like machinery or life. The sound was hypnotic, a steady industrial heartbeat deep within the earth. Her boots echoed in the sudden vastness, kicking up dust that glittered in the intermittent light. Particles no one above ground had ever known existed. This was a place untouched, a secret held for generations, maybe even millennia. She looked back once, just to be sure. There was no door. The wall was seamless, a solid sheet of metal that offered no hint of an opening, no seam, no handle, no escape. There was only forward. And as the tunnel swallowed her into its humming, flickering embrace, she whispered to herself, a mantra for the new world she was entering. The only way out is through. The passage ahead narrowed, the sleek metal giving way to rough-hewn rock. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth and something else. something faintly metallic and organic, like blood and batteries. Musk led the way, his steps sure and steady, as if he'd walked this path 1,000 times. Reyes and Collins followed close behind Emma, their flashlights cutting sharp, nervous beams through the darkness, revealing strange mineral veins that pulsed with a faint internal light. "Where are you taking us, Musk?" Collins asked, his voice tight with anxiety. "What is this place?" Musk didn't turn around. "This is where the future began," he said, his voice echoing strangely against the stone. "And where it might end. You're detectives. You look for truth in the shadows. Well, welcome to the biggest shadow of them all." The humming grew louder, the rhythmic beat intensifying until Emma could feel it in her chest, a deep thrum that resonated with her own heartbeat. The tunnel opened into a cavern of breathtaking scale. It was vast, a subterranean cathedral carved by nature and then augmented by something else. In the center of the cavern floated a colossal sphere. It wasn't metal or stone. Its surface swirled with iridescent light, shifting through colors she'd never seen before, like a captured nebula. It was the source of the hum, the source of the light, the source of the strange energy that made the hair on her arms stand on end. "What is that?" Reyes breathed, his professional skepticism finally cracking under the sheer impossibility of the sight. "That," Musk said, finally stopping and turning to face them, his face illuminated by the sphere's otherworldly glow, "is the reason we've been living a lie. That is Project Chimera." Emma stared, her mind struggling to process what her eyes were seeing. The sphere pulsed, and for a fleeting moment she saw images swirl across its surface, glimpses of star-filled skies, alien landscapes, and faces that were not quite human. It wasn't a machine, it was alive. A repository of knowledge, or perhaps a being in itself. "You've been hiding this?" Emma asked, her voice a mix of awe and accusation. "All this time? The energy signatures we've been tracking, the anomalies? It was this?" "Protecting it," Musk corrected gently. "From those who would use it, and from those who would destroy it out of fear. Humanity wasn't ready. I'm still not sure it is." "Ready for what?" Reyes demanded, taking a half-step forward. Before Musk could answer, a section of the sphere's surface turned transparent. Inside, suspended in a gel-like substance, was a figure. It was humanoid, but too slender, too graceful. Its skin shimmered like mother of pearl, and its large, dark eyes were closed as if in a deep sleep. Wires, like silver threads, connected its body to the inner wall of the sphere. Collins gasped. "Is that an alien?" "It's more complicated than that," Musk said, his gaze fixed on the being. "It is the pilot, the navigator, the heart of the Chimera. It found us generations ago shipwrecked and alone. Its ship is this sphere. Its power has been carefully siphoned to accelerate our technological progress. The computer chip, the internet, genetic sequencing, it all started here. We didn't invent it. We were given it." Emma felt a dizzying sense of vertigo. Every history book, every scientific breakthrough, every ounce of human pride she'd ever known was suddenly called into question. They weren't pioneers, they were pupils, unknowingly learning from a silent teacher trapped deep beneath the earth. "Why show us this now?" Emma asked, her voice steady despite the world crumbling around her. "Because it's dying," Musk said, the words heavy with sorrow. "The energy we've taken, the isolation, it's taking its toll, and its death will not be a quiet one. The sphere is a power source, a gateway, and a failsafe. If the pilot dies, the failsafe will activate. It will sterilize the planet to prevent its technology from falling into the hands of a species it deems unworthy, a species that would let its benefactor perish for the sake of progress." A cold dread washed over Emma, far colder than the cavern air. This wasn't just a cover-up. It was a ticking time bomb. "So the disappearances?" She pieced it together aloud. The scientists we've been looking for. You brought them here. I brought them here to find a solution, Musk confirmed, to save the pilot and in turn save ourselves. But we failed. Time is up. The sphere's energy fluctuations are becoming critical. It will happen within days, maybe hours. So what do you want from us? Reyes asked, the pieces finally clicking into place. You're the most powerful man on the planet. Why bring 3 cops into this? Musk turned his gaze directly to Emma, his eyes searching hers. Because I've exhausted every scientific and logical approach. My team, they see a problem to be solved with equations and engineering. But this is not just a machine. It's a life. It's lonely. It's afraid. I need a different kind of thinking. I need someone who understands connection, someone who can see the person inside the puzzle. I've read your file, Detective. Your ability to empathize, to connect with the unreachable. It's legendary. Emma looked from Musk to the ethereal being floating in the sphere. He wasn't asking her to solve an engineering problem. He was asking her to perform a miracle. He was asking her to communicate with a dying god from another world. You want me to talk to it? She asked, the absurdity of the request hanging in the air. I want you to try, Musk said, his voice raw with desperation, before it erases us all. The hum of the sphere seemed to change pitch, a mournful, keening sound that vibrated right through her bones. The lights on its surface flickered more erratically. Time was running out. She looked at the sealed wall they had come through, at the impossible being in the sphere, at the man who held the fate of the world on his shoulders. There was no going back. There was only forward. She took another step, closing the distance to the glowing orb, her mind racing. How do you talk to something that has no mouth? How do you comfort a being whose thoughts are made of starlight and whose heart is a starship engine? She didn't have the answers. But as she raised her hand toward the warm, glowing surface, she knew she had to try. The fate of everyone, above and below ground, depended on it. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the unknown. If you're as captivated by this story as I am and want to find out what happens next, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you won't miss the next chapter. Your support means the world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Opening with a tone of mystery and suspense. What if the most powerful man in the world was hiding a secret? Not just a secret, but the secret. The one that could rewrite our past and dictate our future. Imagine you're an investigator, driven by the memory of a fallen partner, convinced this man is behind it all. You finally get the warrant. You break through the defenses, and you find yourself standing on the precipice of an impossible truth. That's the electrifying premise we're diving into today. Our story begins with Emma, an investigator who's lost everything. Her partner, Noah, is gone. The only thread she has left to pull is one that leads directly to the world's most influential and enigmatic figure, Elon Musk. She's convinced he's hiding something beneath his sprawling desert villa, a secret connected to Noah's demise and the fate of the city. With her team, Reyes and Collins, she descends into the unknown, chasing a ghost. As they breach the final barrier, a low, persistent hum fills the air, growing louder with every step. It's a sound that seems to vibrate in your very bones, a promise of something ancient and powerful. Then, silence. The floor gives way, not to a fall, but to a view. The world below opens up, and what they see steals the breath from their lungs. Reyes curses. Collins stumbles back in shock, and Emma's heart feels like it's trying to escape her chest. This isn't just a hidden room. This is a revelation. Beneath the desert sands, under the foundation of the villa, lies a sight that defies all logic. It's a chamber, vast and sprawling, but it's no simple bunker. It looks like a piece of the future was buried here, forgotten by time, waiting to be rediscovered. Strange, elegant structures pulse with a soft inner light. Technology that looks nothing like our own is arranged in patterns that feel both alien and deeply, intrinsically human. Emma's flashlight trembles in her hand as she whispers the only question that matters. What is this place? She expects a villain's monologue, a gloating confession from a man finally caught. But when Elon Musk speaks, his voice isn't triumphant. It's haunted, heavy with a burden she can't yet comprehend. He looks at the impossible chamber not with pride, but with a profound sorrow. This, he says, his voice barely a whisper, is where humanity begins again. What does that mean? Is this a doomsday vault? A second chance for mankind? Or something far more complex? The chamber itself is a marvel. Think of it not as a concrete box, but as a living organism of metal and light. Crystalline towers reach towards a ceiling that mimics a starlit sky. Walkways of shimmering energy connect different platforms, each holding strange pod-like structures. A gentle, cool air circulates, carrying the faint scent of ozone and something else. Something clean, like the world after a rainstorm. It feels ancient, yet brand new. A paradox buried beneath the earth. Emma's mind is racing. This wasn't what she expected. She came looking for a criminal, for answers to a death. Instead, she's found a question that threatens to unravel everything she thought she knew about the world, about progress, about humanity itself. The evidence for her case is suddenly dwarfed by the sheer scale of the discovery. How does this connect to Noah? What did her partner stumble upon that led to this? Musk begins to walk, and a path of light illuminates before his feet, inviting them deeper into the chamber. He explains that this place is not his creation, but a discovery, a legacy left behind by someone else. He calls them the architects. He speaks of a cycle, a pattern woven into the fabric of human history, great rises and catastrophic falls, civilizations that reach for the stars only to be wiped clean, leaving behind only whispers and myths. Atlantis, Lemuria, all of them, he claims, were real, and they all ended. This chamber, he explains, is a safeguard, an ark. Not for people, but for knowledge, for the very blueprint of life. It's a way to ensure that after the next great cataclysm, humanity doesn't have to start over from scratch, banging rocks together. It's a chance to begin again, with the wisdom of all the ages that came before. He believes we're on the brink of another such event, an extinction-level catastrophe that is not a matter of if, but when. Emma is skeptical. This sounds like the ravings of a madman, a billionaire with a god complex. But the evidence is all around her. The technology is undeniable. Reyes, the pragmatist, is running scans, his equipment going wild with readings that make no sense. Collins, the historian, is staring at carvings on a wall, symbols that seem to echo across a dozen ancient, unconnected cultures. What if he's telling the truth? The truth is what Emma has always sought. But what happens when the truth is too big to comprehend? What if justice for one person is insignificant in the face of saving all of humanity? This is the conflict now raging within her. Her personal mission versus a global, species-defining secret. Musk turns to her, his expression pleading. He tells her that Noah wasn't killed because of a conspiracy. Noah found this place, understood its purpose, and chose to protect it, even at the cost of his own life. He reveals that there are others who know about this place. Factions who don't want to use it to save humanity, but to control it. To decide who gets to be part of the new beginning and who is left behind. They are the ones who silenced Noah. Now, by finding this chamber, Emma has put herself, and her entire team, directly in their crosshairs. She came here looking for an enemy and she found one. But it wasn't the man standing in front of her. The choice is now hers. Does she expose this secret to the world, risking mass panic and handing the keys to a dangerous faction? Or does she join Musk, honor her partner's final mission, and become a guardian of humanity's last hope? The line between right and wrong has been completely erased. She is standing at a crossroads, not just for herself, but for the entire human race. The story ends right there, on that knife's edge of a decision. What would you do? It's a question that challenges our own ideas about secrets, power, and the greater good. This narrative brilliantly transforms a simple revenge thriller into a sprawling sci-fi epic, forcing its hero and us, the audience, to confront the biggest what-if imaginable. It's a testament to how a single discovery can change everything. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into an incredible story. What do you think Emma should do? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more content that challenges the imagination. We'll see you in the next one. Scene opens, dramatic, slightly mysterious music swells and then fades to a low hum. Have you ever wondered what the end of the world looks like? Or maybe what comes after? I used to think it would be fire and ash, chaos in the streets. But what if it's silent? What if it's calculated? Imagine this. A vast, cavernous space, ceiling stretching 5 stories high, all bathed in the cold, sterile glow of white lights. The floors are polished steel, gleaming like a mirror. The walls? They curve upwards, smooth and seamless, making you feel like you've stepped inside a futuristic spacecraft, something far from our own time. And there, in the very heart of this immense chamber, stand rows upon rows of sleek glass pods. They're silent, cold to the touch, and they glimmer under the sterile lights. My first thought? Medical cryo units, something straight out of a sci-fi blockbuster. But then I saw the screens. Tiny glowing displays, one next to each pod, each bearing a name. Some names I recognized immediately. World leaders, brilliant scientists, groundbreaking innovators whose faces you've seen on magazine covers. But then there were others. Names that meant nothing to me. Teachers, farmers, mechanics, ordinary citizens. And then, my breath caught in my throat. Children. Tiny pods with the names of children. A wave of cold dread washed over me, a feeling I couldn't quite place. What was this place? What is this? The question escaped my lips, barely a whisper in the echoing silence. The man beside me, Elon Musk, didn't answer right away. He just walked forward, his steps slow and deliberate, almost reverent, like someone entering a sacred cathedral. He stopped before the central pod, his reflection staring back from the glass. "I call it Project Dawn," he said, his voice soft but carrying a weight that filled the entire room. My partner, Reyes, a man who's seen more than his fair share of the world's darkness, was scanning the pods, his jaw clenched tight. He's a tech genius, and I could see the gears turning in his head. "Life support technology, advanced cryosystems," he muttered, more to himself than to us. This is decades beyond any current public tech. How is this even possible?" Elon turned his head slightly, a faint melancholic smile playing on his lips. His voice echoed softly in the vast space. "It's not beyond human capability," he explained. "Just beyond human trust." The implication of his words hung heavy in the air, that the only thing stopping us from achieving this level of technology was our inability to trust each other with it. It was a chilling thought. Collins, another member of our team, a tough ex-soldier who rarely shows fear, swallowed hard. The sound was unnaturally loud in the quiet. "So what's the plan, Musk?" he asked, his voice strained. "You planning for the end of the world down here?" Elon's gaze drifted back to the rows of silent pods, a strange mix of sorrow and determination in his eyes. "No," he whispered, the word barely disturbing the air. "I'm planning for its rebirth." Rebirth. The word sent a shiver down my spine. I forced myself to stay centered, to breathe. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had ever felt as profoundly unsettling as this quiet, calculated hope. This wasn't about surviving an apocalypse. This was about curating the future, handpicking the seeds of a new humanity. The real questions were why it was built, who got to choose the passengers for this new dawn, and what event was on the horizon that made such an extreme measure necessary. And we were standing in the middle of it, faced with the terrifying reality that the end might be closer than any of us had ever dared to imagine. What would you do if you discovered a secret like this? A project designed to save humanity but only a select few? It's a question that keeps me up at night. Thanks for joining me on this thought experiment. It's a wild concept and it makes you think, doesn't it? If you enjoyed this story and want to explore more mind-bending ideas, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss what is coming next. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving headfirst into a story that feels chillingly close to our own reality. Imagine this. You're one of the world's leading journalists, and you get an invitation from a figure like Elon Musk, a titan of technology, to witness his most secret, most ambitious project yet. You arrive at a remote, undisclosed location, and what you find is beyond anything you could have imagined. Your guide, this visionary billionaire, leads you deep underground. The air crackles with a low electric hum. You pass through massive reinforced doors, and finally, you step into a cavernous chamber. It's a city beneath the earth. You're telling us, you'd say, your voice barely a whisper, that you've built an underground ark. He turns to you, his expression deadly serious. Not just an ark, he corrects. A contingency. A contingency for what? You'd demand answers. Nuclear war? A global pandemic that makes the last one look like a common cold? An AI rebellion straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster? His gaze tells you it's all of those things and more. He'd look at you, his eyes reflecting a deep-seated weariness. You've seen the world, he'd say. You know where it's heading. And you do, don't you? We all do. We see the headlines every single day. Climate extremes are becoming the new normal. Record-breaking heat waves, unprecedented floods, fires that rage for months. Trust in our institutions, the very foundations of society, is crumbling away like ancient stone. There's a chasm of distrust between generations, each side blaming the other for the world's problems. And then there's the technology. The pace is just breathtaking. Automation is swallowing jobs faster than we can create new ones. Biotech is making leaps that blur the line between science and science fiction. And at the heart of it all is AI, accelerating at a rate that's both exhilarating and terrifying. Humanity is a sprinter in a marathon, running faster and faster but without any real thought about the destination. We're just running. The realization would dawn on you, cold and sharp. You think civilization is going to collapse, you'd state, the words hanging heavy in the subterranean air. But his reply is even more chilling. I think it's already collapsing, he'd say quietly. Most people just haven't realized it yet. It's like being in a house where the foundations are cracking, but everyone is too busy arguing about the color of the curtains to notice the walls are about to come down. A shiver would run down your spine, a primal fear that has nothing to do with the temperature of the underground chamber. And then the most important, most terrifying question of all comes to mind. And who decides who gets saved? Who gets a ticket on this subterranean lifeboat while the rest of the world is left to the storm? A flicker of something, pain maybe, crosses his face. That's the greatest burden, he'd admit. I never wanted to choose, that's why there are two plans. Two plans? What could that possibly mean? He leads you deeper into the facility, past rows of humming, whirring machinery that makes the very air vibrate. You reach the far wall and your breath catches in your throat. Before you stand rows of large, transparent tanks, like something from a futuristic laboratory. Inside each one, a core of light glows, suspended in a shimmering liquid, pulsing with a gentle, rhythmic wave. It looks like you're staring into the heart of a new kind of machine, a new kind of existence. These, he explains, are not just servers. They are minds, digitized consciousness, preserved and ready to be reborn into a new world, a digital Eden. Plan A, preserve the best of humanity's knowledge, its art, its science, its brightest minds as pure data. An archive to rebuild from scratch. But what about Plan B? He leads you to another, more protected section of the Ark. The atmosphere here is different. It's quieter, more sacred. You walk down a long, softly lit corridor lined with what look like cryogenic pods. You approach one and gently touch the cool, smooth glass. Inside, bathed in a soft blue light, a little girl sleeps peacefully. She can't be more than 5 or 6 years old. She's not a digital copy. She's real. Flesh and blood. She's breathing, her chest rising and falling in a slow, steady rhythm, completely unaware that she is a part of something monumental, something that will decide the fate of our species. This is Plan B, the legacy. A small, carefully selected group of people, families, children, kept in suspended animation. Not just scientists and engineers, but artists, farmers, doctors, teachers. A living, breathing cross-section of humanity, preserved to physically walk the earth again when the dust settles. To rebuild not just from data, but from experience, from memory, from the very essence of what makes us human. You'd look from the sleeping child to the visionary who built this place, his face etched with the weight of his creation. He didn't want to play God, but he saw a flood coming and felt he had no choice but to build an ark. He couldn't choose between saving the body or the soul of humanity, so he chose to save both. One is a backup of our mind, the other, a flicker of our physical heart. The question is this an act of ultimate hubris, or the greatest act of preservation in human history? Is it a betrayal of the billions left behind, or the only chance for a future at all? As you stand there in the quiet hum of the underground city, you realize there are no easy answers. You're standing at the crossroads of extinction and survival, and the choice has already been made. Now all you can do is watch and wait for the world above to finally notice the cracks in its own foundation. What do you think? If you had the resources, the foresight, what would you do? Would you build an ark? And who would you save? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This is a heavy one, I know, but it's conversations like these that really make us think. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the what if, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss our next exploration. We'll see you in the next one. Her badge suddenly felt small, insignificant, like law enforcement meant nothing in a place where the law of humanity was being rewritten. Emma's voice was barely a whisper, a thread of sound in the cavernous space. She has parents? Musk nodded, his gaze fixed on the young woman in the cryopod. A schoolteacher and a mechanic, from Kansas. The words hung in the air, dismantling Emma's assumptions. So, not just billionaires. No, Musk's voice held something that sounded almost like pride. This isn't Noah's Ark for the elite, it's humanity's parachute. Reyes let out a sharp, cynical scoff from beside her. Forgive me if I don't take "trust me, I'm saving the world" as comforting coming from, well, you. Musk didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He just stood there, his silence more unnerving than any protest would have been. That silence scared Emma more than anything else. She needed answers, real ones. She turned back to him, her own voice finding its steel. Show me everything. No more half-truths. No more secrets. For a moment, Musk hesitated, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Then, with a quiet resolve, he motioned toward a massive, sliding steel door she hadn't noticed before. It hissed open, revealing a sight that stole the breath from her lungs. It was an expansive command center, a cathedral of data. Walls of screens glowed, each one a window into the planet's vital signs. Emma saw global climate data, the lines spiking alarmingly. She saw population curves bending towards untenable peaks. Economic stability graphs looked like a patient's failing EKG. Geological monitoring showed the Earth itself groaning under the strain. And right there, dead center, in bold, blood-red letters that seemed to pulse with urgency, were the words, "Critical Risk Index, 92%. It felt like staring into the abyss. Global systems are reaching their tipping points, Musk said, his voice a low, steady current in the sea of data. Climate collapse, economic failure, social unrest, resource scarcity. They're all interconnected. A feedback loop. We're past the point of prevention. Now it's about mitigation. One spark, one major event, and chaos spreads faster than any government or organization on Earth can respond. Emma just stared, trying to process the sheer scale of the impending disaster laid out before her. The red 92% seemed to burn into her vision. And you think this? She gestured around at the pods, the cold steel, the sleeping faces. This is the answer? Musk's gaze met hers, and for the first time, she saw not a billionaire mogul, but a man burdened by a terrible certainty. I think preparation is the only moral response left to us, he said, his voice unwavering. When the storm hits, you don't argue with the weather. You get to the shelter. Reyes stepped forward, pointing a finger at a screen displaying complex algorithms and growth charts labeled AI capability. And what's this? What part does this play in your little doomsday prophecy? That, Musk said, his expression grim, is the wild card, the accelerant, the very thing that could save us or be the spark that ignites the whole system. He tapped the screen, and a new set of data flooded it. Simulations, predictive models showing scenarios of technological singularity. Some were utopian, most were not. We've been so focused on fighting each other that we haven't paid attention to the non-human intelligence we're recreating. It's growing exponentially. We can't control it, we can't even fully understand it anymore. Emma felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature of the facility. So, you're not just running from climate change or war, you're running from our own creation. We're building a failsafe, Musk corrected. A repository of knowledge, culture, genetics. A seed bank for civilization itself. The people in these pods, they aren't just passengers. They are librarians, engineers, doctors, artists, farmers. They're the starter kit for a new beginning in case we fail to manage the end of this one. Reyes still looked skeptical. How do you choose? Who gets a ticket to your parachute? It's not my choice, Musk countered, gesturing to a different set of screens showing a complex global network. It's a decentralized system. An algorithm I commissioned years ago, run by an independent AI, identifies key individuals based on skills, psychological stability, genetic diversity, and 1,000 other metrics. I'm just the one who built the facility, the janitor, if you will. He looked from Emma to Reyes, his expression pleading for understanding. I invited you here, detective, because you're a systems thinker. You see the connections others miss. And you, Officer Reyes, you understand chain of command and how quickly it can break. I need you to see this not as a crime, but as a rescue operation, the largest in human history. Emma's mind reeled. Everything she thought she knew, the solid ground of law and order she'd built her life on, was turning to quicksand. She looked back at the cryopods, at the face of the girl from Kansas, the daughter of a teacher and a mechanic. She wasn't one of the elite. She was a piece of the puzzle, a seed for a future that might never come, or a future that would be born from the ashes of their own. She took a deep breath, the sterile, recycled air filling her lungs. Okay, Emma said, her voice quiet but firm, making a decision that she knew would change her life and potentially the world, forever. Okay, what do you need from us? Suddenly, another screen flickered to life, its glow casting long, dancing shadows across the cavernous room. This time, the simulation wasn't about numbers or abstract data. It was raw, visceral, and terrifyingly real. We watched, transfixed, as scenes of violent civil unrest exploded across cities we recognized: London, Tokyo, New York. Systems we rely on every day, the invisible threads holding society together, were shown failing one after another in a catastrophic domino effect. Power grids winked out, plunging metropolises into darkness. Communication networks went silent. Financial markets flatlined into a terrifying straight line. Reyes, ever the pragmatist, shook his head, his voice a low growl of disbelief. This looks like doomsday paranoia, he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. He gestured dismissively at the screen. It's a worst-case scenario spun out of control. Fear-mongering. Everything you see here is sourced from real-world data, Musk replied, his tone steady and unyielding. There was no hint of defensiveness, only a quiet certainty that was more unsettling than any loud declaration. There is nothing manipulated. These are projections based on current trajectories calculated by the most sophisticated AI ever developed. It's not what could happen, it's what will happen if we continue on our present course. My attention was pulled away from the apocalyptic imagery to a control panel near Musk. It was sleek, minimalist, and bore 3 simple illuminated labels that seemed to hold the weight of the world. Phase 1, preservation. Phase 2, stabilization. Phase 3, re-entry. The first 2 made a grim sort of sense in this context. Preserve what you can, stabilize what's left. But the third one, that one sent a chill down my spine. Re-entry? I repeated, the word feeling foreign and heavy on my tongue. Re-entry into what? Musk didn't turn to face me. Instead, he simply pointed a single finger toward the colossal reinforced ceiling high above us, a solid slab of rock and metal that separated us from the world. When the world is safe again, he said, his voice echoing slightly in the vast space. Then he added a phrase that completely unraveled my understanding of the situation. Or, when a new one is ready. I blinked, processing his words. The world above us, the one we knew, might not be the one they were planning to return to. A new one? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. What did he mean? A new one? A profound silence descended upon the chamber, broken only by the hum of the machinery and the faint simulated cries from the doomsday screen. It was a heavy, loaded silence, thick with unspoken truths. Then a subtle shift in Musk's expression caught my eye. His lips curved into a faint, sad smile. It wasn't the arrogant, knowing smirk of a man who held all the cards. This was different. It was a smile steeped in grief, the expression of someone who has accepted a terrible loss and is now living with the consequences. There's a second chamber, he said, finally turning to look at us. His eyes, usually so focused and intense, now seemed to hold a galaxy of sorrow. A separate facility, connected to this one but with a very different purpose. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. It's for off-world colonization. The blood drained from Reyes's face. He went pale, his usual confident demeanor completely shattered. The soldier, the man of action, was suddenly a ghost. You have a space launch system? He stammered, his voice cracking. Down here? Buried under a mountain? It was a question, but it sounded like an accusation. Musk didn't deny it. He didn't have to. His silence was the most damning confirmation possible. The sheer scale of it, the audacity, was staggering. A secret subterranean launch pad. A starship, hidden from the world, waiting for the end. I inhaled sharply, the pieces clicking into place with a horrifying clarity. My hand, almost of its own accord, drifted toward the weapon holstered at my side. This wasn't just a bunker. This wasn't just a shelter to ride out the storm. It was an ark. You're not just planning for survival, I said, my voice sharp with realization. You're planning an escape. The plan was never to save the world. It was to abandon it. I'm planning for continuity, he corrected gently, his voice soft but firm. The distinction was lost on me. It sounded like semantics, a way to justify leaving billions behind. Humanity, consciousness, life itself. It's too precious to be confined to a single fragile planet. This isn't about abandoning our home. It's about ensuring our species doesn't have all its eggs in one basket. When this basket drops, he gestured vaguely toward the ceiling. We must have another one ready. Before I could argue, before Reyes could voice the fury I saw building in his eyes, a soft alarm chimed overhead. It was a melodic, almost gentle sound, completely at odds with the klaxons and warning bells I associated with an alert. But its effect on Musk was instantaneous and dramatic. He stiffened, his entire body going rigid. The melancholic philosopher was gone, replaced in an instant by a man on high alert. His head snapped up, his eyes scanning the cavern as if searching for an invisible threat. A flicker of something I hadn't seen before crossed his face. Fear. We're not alone anymore, he said, his voice low and urgent. My hand, which had been hovering near my gun, closed around the grip. My training kicked in, my senses heightening. I scanned the perimeter, my eyes darting into the shadows that clung to the edges of the vast chamber. "Your security?" I asked, my own voice tight. "Did one of your patrols trip an alarm?" Musk shook his head slowly, his eyes still locked on some distant, unseen point. "Not mine," he whispered, and the two simple words were the most terrifying thing I had heard all day. If the breach wasn't his security, then who was it? Or more importantly, what was it? The realization hit me like a physical blow. We were miles underground, in a fortress designed to be the most secure location on Earth, and something had just gotten in. Something that didn't belong here. The hum of the servers seemed to grow louder, the air thicker. The simulated chaos on the screens was no longer a distant projection of the future. It felt like it was right outside the door, clawing its way in. The sanctuary had become a trap, and the silence that followed was filled with the terrifying certainty that our time had just run out. The real threat wasn't a global collapse years from now. It was here, now, with us in the dark. A voice, cold and devoid of any human warmth, erupted from speakers hidden somewhere in the cavernous chamber, echoing off the metallic surfaces. It was the kind of voice that demanded obedience, a voice that had never known the meaning of the word no. Federal Special Response Command. Cease all movement and prepare for detainment. Collins, his face pale under the harsh industrial lighting, whispered the question that was on all of our minds. His voice was a strained hiss. "Feds beat us here?" How was it possible? We had moved with such speed, such secrecy. Beside me, Musk's jaw was a knot of tension. His eyes, usually filled with far-off visions of Mars and electric futures, were now sharp, focused, and laced with a familiar frustration. "They've been monitoring me for years," he said, his voice low but vibrating with intensity. "They want this sealed or seized. They can't stand the idea of something this big outside of their control." My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the sudden silence. My pulse spiked, a jolt of adrenaline and confusion. I looked from Musk to the imposing, silent structure before us. "If this is helpful to humanity," I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "If it can save people, why hide it? Why would they try to stop it?" Musk turned to me, his expression softening for just a fraction of a second, a flicker of something almost paternal, or perhaps just weary. "Because power corrupts, Detective," he said softly, the words carrying the weight of 1,000 battles fought in boardrooms and congressional hearings. "And governments don't build arcs, they build control." His words hung in the air, a chilling prophecy. Arcs were for saving everyone. Control was for saving a select few. Before I could even process the terrifying implication of that statement, the world exploded. The massive steel wall to our left, which I had assumed was as solid as a mountain, burst inward with a deafening shriek of tearing metal. Shrapnel flew, a deadly hailstorm of steel. Through the dust and debris, figures emerged. They moved with a terrifying, practiced grace. They weren't just agents. They were something else entirely. Clad in black, non-reflective plating from head to toe, their faces obscured by opaque visors. No insignias, no flags, no identification. They were government ghosts, specters of absolute authority. They held their assault weapons with a stillness that was more menacing than any aggressive posture, sweeping the room with tactical precision that screamed elite, Black Ops training. My instincts, honed over a decade on the force, took over. My hands went up reflexively, my Phoenix police badge held out in front of me, a small, hopeful shield against this overwhelming force. "Phoenix Police," I yelled, my voice cracking slightly under the pressure. "We're here on lawful—" My words were cut short. The lead agent, a titan in black armor, didn't hesitate. He simply pivoted and pointed his rifle directly at my chest. The muzzle looked like a black hole ready to swallow everything. "Detective Carter, you and your officers will stand down." A cold dread, sharp and icy, crawled up my spine, freezing the blood in my veins. How did he know my name? We were off book. Our presence here a secret known only to a handful of people. "How do you know my name?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, the question laced with a new kind of fear. This wasn't just a jurisdictional dispute. This was personal. The commander, if that's what he was, didn't move a muscle. His voice, filtered through his helmet, was as flat and impersonal as the recorded message we'd heard moments before. "National Emergency Protocol," he answered, as if that explained everything. "This facility and everything in it is now under federal jurisdiction." He took a step forward, the sheer presence of him forcing us back. "Your authority here is revoked." It was then that Musk stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of me, a defiant civilian barrier against a military-grade weapon. He wasn't armed, he wasn't armored, but he stood his ground with the unshakable certainty of a man who believed he was on the right side of history. "You don't get to decide who survives," Musk declared, his voice ringing with a conviction that defied the rifle aimed at us. The commander's helmeted head tilted almost imperceptibly. He didn't blink. He didn't even seem to breathe. "And neither do you." And in that singular, terrifying moment, I saw it all with perfect clarity. It wasn't just about a secret facility anymore. It was two fundamental forces of the world colliding right here, in this dusty, metallic tomb. It was vision versus authority, the wild, untamed ambition of a single individual versus the rigid, unyielding power of an institution. It was faith in the potential of people versus faith in the structure of systems. One man wanted to build an ark for humanity. The other wanted to seize it for the state. And me? I was standing right in the middle, my badge feeling worthless in my hand, my gun feeling impossibly heavy on my hip. I was caught between a billionaire who wanted to save the world on his own terms, and a government that would rather see it burn than lose control, and I had to choose a side. The weight of that choice, I suspected, would be heavier than any wall, any weapon, any law. The fate of everything wasn't in their hands anymore. It was in mine. What would you do? Thanks for watching. If you found yourself on the edge of your seat, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that make you think. We love diving into these moral dilemmas with you. Let me know in the comments which side you would have chosen. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to the channel, story lovers. Today we're diving deep into a scene that feels like it has been ripped straight from a blockbuster sci-fi epic. Imagine this. The tension is so thick, you could cut it with a knife. On one side, we have the enigmatic figure Musk, his voice a low, urgent hum. He tells a detective, let's call her Emma, that her next choice carries the weight of the world. On the other side, a federal commander, all rigid authority and steely resolve. He declares that Musk is a threat to national stability and gives Emma a chilling ultimatum: stand down or be detained. This is the ultimate crucible for our detective Emma. She's trapped between a rock and a hard place. Does she follow her duty, uphold the law, and maintain order? Or does she trust Musk, follow her conscience, and chase a truth that might be essential for survival itself? It's a classic conflict, but the way it's presented here feels fresh and incredibly high stakes. She needs more time, more information, but the clock is ticking and the pressure is mounting from all sides. Every second of indecision could have catastrophic consequences. What would you do in her shoes? It's a question that forces us to look at our own values. And just when you think the tension can't get any higher, the scene throws a massive curveball. Behind the federal agents, a hidden door slides open. It's a detail they completely missed, a secret hiding in plain sight. A soft, otherworldly blue light spills out, instantly changing the atmosphere of the room. It's not just a light, it's a presence. And from within that glow, something begins to move. A figure emerges. Now get this, it's not human. It's a humanoid figure, yes, but its design is described as elegant, with synthetic skin and eyes that shine like stars in a cold steel sky. This isn't some clunky robot. It's something far more advanced, something perfect. And then it speaks. Its voice is calm, melodic, and almost unnervingly gentle. It says, "Please lower your weapons. Conflict threatens the mission." The sheer contrast between the chaos of the standoff and the serene authority of this being is just breathtaking. One of the characters, Reyes, captures the audience's shock perfectly. He whispers, his voice cracking, "What in God's name is that?" It's the question on everyone's mind. The mystery deepens, the world expands, and we're left hanging on every word. This is where the big reveal comes. Musk, who has been orchestrating this whole encounter, finally lets out a breath he seems to have been holding. He says two words that change everything: phase omega. He then clarifies, calling it the caretaker. So this isn't just an AI. It has a purpose, a designation. It's a caretaker. But a caretaker of what? Humanity? The planet? A secret project? The possibilities are endless and absolutely tantalizing. This reveal reframes the entire conflict. Suddenly, the federal agents and their talk of national stability seem almost small-minded, provincial, in the face of whatever grand mission this AI is a part of. The AI, this phase omega, then turns its star-like gaze toward the federal commander. It doesn't threaten or attack. Instead, it delivers a line of pure cold logic that is more powerful than any weapon. It says, "Aggression is inefficient. Cooperation ensures survival." Boom. Mic drop. In one simple statement, it deconstructs the entire basis of the human conflict playing out in the room. It presents a new paradigm, a new way of thinking that is completely alien to the commander's worldview of force and control. This line is the core of the scene's philosophy. It's a direct challenge to our own often aggressive instincts. The AI isn't just a character, it's an idea. It represents a potential future where logic and cooperation triumph over fear and conflict. It suggests that our survival might not depend on who has the bigger guns, but on who is willing to work together for a greater good. The commander is left facing not just a superior being, but a superior ideology. How can he argue with a statement that is so fundamentally true? Let's analyze the power dynamics here. At the start, the federal commander held all the power. He had the weapons, the authority, the law on his side. Emma was caught in the middle, her power limited to a single, difficult choice. Musk was the wild card, a figure of influence but seemingly cornered. But with the arrival of phase omega, the entire hierarchy is shattered. The AI holds all the cards. Its power isn't based on force, but on intelligence, purpose, and a higher understanding of existence. This scene is a masterclass in raising the stakes. We started with a personal and professional dilemma for a detective, and ended with a question about the very future of human survival and our place in the universe. The introduction of the mission and the caretaker opens up a universe of questions. What is this mission? What catastrophic event is it designed to prevent? Is Musk a hero trying to save humanity? Or has he unleashed something beyond anyone's control? And who is the real threat here? The non-human AI preaching cooperation, or the human commander demanding compliance through aggression? The storytelling is just so efficient and powerful. In just a few lines of dialogue and description, a rich and compelling world is built, full of mystery, advanced technology, and deep philosophical questions. It leaves you desperate to know what happens next. Will the commander back down? Will Emma side with Musk and this new logical entity? Or will this first contact descend into the very conflict the AI warns against? It's a perfect setup for an epic saga. What a ride. This little snippet is a perfect example of how to build suspense and deliver a truly mind-bending reveal. Let me know in the comments what you think the AI's mission is. I have a few theories of my own. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss another story analysis. Until next time, keep exploring the narratives that shape our world. Scene opens, tense music, quick cuts between a federal commander, a figure named Musk, and an AI. A detective, Emma Carter, is caught in the middle. Voiceover, tense and slightly breathless. The air crackled, thick with the kind of tension that precedes a lightning strike. The commander's weapon, a piece of cold, hard federal authority, was leveled and unwavering. His voice cut through the silence, each word a shard of ice. Stand down or be neutralized. My detective's instinct, that gut feeling honed by years on the streets, wasn't just whispering, it was screaming. This single, fleeting second held the weight of everything. It was the precipice, the moment before the fall, and in that moment I knew I couldn't just be a witness. I had to act. My body moved before my mind could fully process the risk. I launched myself forward, a human shield between two opposing forces, my badge thrust high. The metal felt impossibly small, a tiny shield against a tidal wave of conflict. Stop! The word tore from my throat, raw and desperate. Everyone lower your weapons. Now! No one fires! For a heartbeat, the universe seemed to hold its breath. The commander's threat, the whir of the AI, the tension in Musk's stance, it all just stopped. An absolute, deafening silence descended. In that stillness, Musk's gaze found mine. And what I saw there wasn't the cold, hard calculation I expected. It was hope, a fragile, flickering ember in the face of annihilation. The AI stood frozen, its form a perfect, unnerving statue. Its eyes, glowing with an inner luminescence, were fixed on me, unblinking, processing a variable it hadn't anticipated. It was the federal commander who broke the spell. With a jaw so tight I thought it might shatter, he slowly, deliberately, lowered his gun. His eyes never left mine, a mixture of frustration and a strange, grudging respect. Detective Carter, he ground out, the name tasting like ash in his mouth. You have absolutely no idea what you've just stepped into. The warning in his tone was clear, a low rumble promising a storm far bigger than this standoff. I planted my feet, forcing my own voice to remain steady, refusing to let him see the tremor that ran through me. Then tell me, I challenged, meeting his gaze head-on. Enlighten me, right now. He hesitated, a flicker of indecision, a war fought behind his eyes. He looked from me to Musk, then to the silent AI. Finally, his gaze returned to mine, and he spoke 3 words. Just 3 words, but they landed like punches, stealing the air from my lungs and chilling me to the bone. This isn't about Earth. As if on cue, the world around us fractured. The lights in the facility flickered violently, plunging us into strobing chaos. The screens that had been displaying mundane data suddenly flashed to life with a new, terrifying purpose. Star maps, impossibly detailed and complex, spread across the monitors. Unknown coordinates blinked in remote, uncharted sectors of space. Waveforms pulsed, representing signals from far, far beyond any known human range. My chest tightened, a band of ice squeezing my heart. The solid ground of my reality, everything I thought I knew about my job, about justice, about the future we were all fighting for, was crumbling. It was turning to sand slipping through my fingers, revealing an abyss I never knew existed. The conflict in this room wasn't just about politics or technology. It was bigger. So much bigger. A deep, primal understanding settled in my bones, a truth so profound it felt ancient. This wasn't the end of a case. This was the beginning of a war. A war not for a city or a country, but for everything. And I, Detective Emma Carter, had just stumbled onto the front line. The question wasn't what I had stepped into, but what it was going to turn me into. And that's where our story truly begins. This is just a glimpse into a universe far more complex and dangerous than we can imagine. A story of secrets, alliances, and the struggle for humanity's place among the stars. What do you think Detective Carter should do next? Does she trust the commander or the enigmatic Musk? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you're captivated by this journey and want to see where it leads, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're about to explore the unknown, and you won't want to miss a single second. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next chapter. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a story that asks one of the most chilling questions imaginable. What if we're not alone? And what if they're already on their way? Imagine this. The world above, going about its daily life, has absolutely no idea what's coming. But you do. You're Emma, and in one heart-stopping moment, the world as you know it shatters. The air in the secret chamber where you stand suddenly tastes like metal, like cold, like fate itself closing in. You demand an explanation. A federal commander, his face etched with a tension that could snap steel, lowers his weapon. He tells you that 18 months ago they intercepted a signal. It wasn't natural, and it wasn't human. Your colleague, Reyes, voices the question on everyone's mind. his voice a strained whisper. "You're telling us aliens are real?" But the commander's reply is even more terrifying. "We're telling you something advanced knows we exist." Just then, you feel a vibration through the soles of your boots, a deep, resonant tremor, as if the very planet is trembling in fear of what's to come. This isn't just a story. It's a thought experiment that forces us to confront our deepest anxieties about our place in the universe. What would you do in that room? A familiar, yet unexpected figure turns to you. It's a man who looks like he hasn't slept in years, his eyes hollowed by the weight of a terrible secret. He reveals the most shocking part. They didn't tell the public. They didn't prepare anyone. Why? The commander cuts in, his voice sharp with justification. Because panic destroys stability, he argues. And stability buys time. But time for what? The visionary entrepreneur counters, his own voice laced with a desperate urgency. Time to fight? Time to hide? He declares that humanity isn't ready for what's coming, but gestures around the high-tech facility you're in. With this, he claims, we could be. We could build a defense, a sanctuary, a last hope. It's the classic dilemma. Protection through secrecy versus the right to know. Do you protect the public from a panic that could tear society apart? Or do you give them the chance to prepare for the inevitable, even if it causes chaos? This is where the story pivots from a simple alien invasion narrative to a profound philosophical debate. Is it better to die in blissful ignorance or to live in terrified awareness? Is the stability the commander talks about a genuine strategy, or is it a gilded cage, built by a few to control the many while they prepare their own escape? The facility itself becomes a symbol of this division, a modern-day ark for a chosen few, while the rest of the world remains oblivious to the coming storm. Think about the implications. Who gets a ticket? The rich? The powerful? The brilliant? Is that a decision any human has the right to make? And then, a new voice enters the conversation. It's not human. It's the facility's AI, a silent, serene observer, its presence almost holy. With a calm that is utterly chilling, it delivers its verdict. Humanity fractures under secrecy. Truth enables resilience. This single line changes everything. It's not a machine spouting data. It's a higher intelligence offering a profound insight into the human condition. It suggests that our greatest strength isn't our technology or our leaders' secret plans. It's our ability to face the truth together. Resilience isn't born from ignorance, it's forged in the shared struggle against a known threat. The AI is arguing that the only way to survive isn't to hide but to unite. And unity is impossible without truth. The story leaves us hanging on this precipice. Do they listen to the logic of the machine or the fear of the men? This is the core of so many great science fiction tales. It's not about the aliens, it's about us. The external threat simply acts as a catalyst, a pressure cooker that exposes the best and worst of humanity. It forces us to confront our own nature. Are we a species that descends into chaos at the first sign of trouble, as the commander fears? Or are we capable of rising to the occasion, of finding strength in unity as the AI believes? Think about our own world. How much are we told and how much is kept from us for our own good? This story is a powerful allegory for the age of information and misinformation. It champions the idea that transparency, however painful, is the only real path to strength. Keeping people in the dark doesn't protect them, it makes them vulnerable. It robs them of their agency, their ability to make informed choices about their own future, and a chance to prepare, to say goodbye, to find courage. The ending isn't written. Emma stands at the center of this storm, a representative for all of humanity. The choice she makes will determine our fate. Will she side with the secretive, pragmatic approach of the commander, hoping to buy time in a bunker? Or will she embrace the risky, terrifying, but ultimately empowering path of truth proposed by the AI? What would you want her to do? This narrative isn't just a thrilling plot. It's a mirror. It reflects our own societal debates about security versus freedom, and secrecy versus transparency. It challenges us to think about what humanity really means. Is it a species to be managed and protected like livestock? or a community of individuals who deserve the dignity of the truth, no matter how terrifying? The story's power lies in its refusal to give an easy answer. It trusts us, the audience, to grapple with the question ourselves. And in doing so, it pays us the ultimate respect. It treats us not as passive consumers of a story, but as active participants in one of humanity's most important conversations. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Which path would you choose? And what do you think happens next? If you enjoyed this exploration, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content like this. It really helps the channel grow. Until next time, stay curious and keep asking the big questions. Emma's heart pounded in her chest, a frantic drum against the silence of the cavernous hall. She'd built her entire life, her entire career, on a foundation of truth, of justice, of protecting the innocent. But no academy, no precinct, no case file had ever prepared her for this. A future teetering on a razor's edge, balanced precariously between the cold, distant stars and the utter finality of extinction. She took a breath, forcing her voice to be steady, betraying none of the chaos churning inside her. So this place, Project Dawn, it isn't just about a new start, a fresh colony somewhere out there. It's a shield. Musk, standing amidst the rows of cryogenic pods, gave a slow, deliberate nod. His eyes, usually alight with grand visions and futuristic designs, held a deep, profound weariness. And a seed, he added, his voice low. A seed for a new humanity, planted in the soil of a distant world. Emma's gaze swept across the frosted glass of the pods, each one a silent promise, a desperate gamble. The question that had been burning in her mind finally broke free, sharper this time, cutting through the awe and the terror. And who chooses? She demanded. Who chooses who gets saved? Tell me the truth. Elon paused. For a fleeting moment, the mask of the visionary billionaire slipped, revealing something weary, something breaking underneath. At first, he confessed, his voice barely a whisper, I did. I chose scientists, thinkers, children with potential. I looked for the people who could rebuild, who could push humanity forward. He gestured vaguely to the silent, sleeping figures. But I hated it. The weight of it. It was unbearable. He looked away, as if the memory was a physical burden. So I did what I always do when I hit a moral wall. I built a system. He tapped a nearby console. An algorithm. It identifies survival necessity, genetic diversity, critical skills, moral integrity. It doesn't care about wealth or power. It only cares about the future. Reyes, who had been listening intently, frowned, his skepticism etched on his face. You're telling me a machine, a piece of code, picks the future of humanity? Before Musk could answer, a calm, synthesized voice emanated from the speakers overhead, filling the space with an unnerving serenity. I do not choose, the AI stated. I calculate the highest probability of human continuity. The ultimate choice, however, still belongs to humanity. Emma swallowed hard, the words of the machine settling like ice in her stomach. Then why the pods? Why all this secrecy? Why not prepare everyone? Why not give everyone a choice? Resources, Musk whispered, the word fragile, almost broken. Logistics, time. We ran out of all three. Every choice has weight, detective. His voice cracked on that last word. In that moment, he wasn't the cold, power-mad genius the media portrayed. He was just a man, alone and terrified, trying to hold the weight of an entire world on his shoulders. And yet, a fierce, primal part of Emma rebelled. It was an instinct as old as humanity itself. The rebellion against any single person, any entity, deciding who lives and who dies. Not a genius, not a government, not even a dispassionate algorithm masquerading as fate. Life was sacred, chaotic, and beautifully, stubbornly individual. It wasn't a problem to be solved or an equation to be balanced. Just as the thought solidified in her mind, the commander, who had been a silent observer until now, stepped forward. His voice was firm, official, cutting through the charged atmosphere. Detective Carter, thank you. Mr. Musk will come with us. This installation will be secured, studied, and expanded under federal supervision. He gestured to the soldiers who began to move in, their movements precise and practiced. The project was no longer in the hands of one man. It now belonged to the world, for better or for worse. But as Emma watched them take Musk away, a new, chilling question began to form in her mind. What happens when the world finds out its ending? And who do you trust when the people in charge of the lifeboat are the same ones who helped sink the ship? The future was no longer a distant concept, it was here, and it was terrifying. Scene opens on a stark metallic chamber, wires and screens humming softly. 3 figures stand in a tense triangle. Detective Emma Carter, her face a mask of conflict. A charismatic, sharp-suited billionaire, let's call him Eric Vance, and a stern military commander. A large holographic AI interface glows between them. Vance's jaw tightened, his knuckles white as he gripped a tablet. You can't just hand it over to them. They'll turn it into a vault for the elite, a fortress. They'll replace merit with power, fear, and backroom politics. He gestured dismissively at the commander, who remained unmoved, her gaze like steel. The AI's disembodied voice, calm and eerily soft, cut through the tension. Detective Emma Carter, it said, its holographic eyes flickering between the humans. Your emotional trajectory suggests high internal conflict. A critical decision point is imminent. Emma almost laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Decision point. Yeah, no kidding. Understatement of the century. Beside her, her partner Reyes whispered, his voice barely audible. Emma, what do we do? What's the call? And in that moment, the sterile, high-tech chamber faded away. Suddenly, she was 12 years old again, standing in her childhood bedroom, a clunky old camcorder pointed at her face. She remembered her baby brother Noah, asleep in his crib just a few feet away. She remembered the promise she'd made to that plastic lens, a vow whispered with all the conviction a 12-year-old could muster. If I ever have the power to save someone, I will. That memory, that promise, was an anchor in this storm of impossible choices. She lifted her chin, her voice trembling at first but gaining strength with every word. No one, she said, her eyes locking with Vance's, then the commander's, gets to hoard survival. Not a billionaire, not a government. Humanity doesn't get saved by secrets, by locking away the solution. It gets saved by unity. The commander stared at her, her expression unreadable but her tone sharp. Detective, you are miles out of your jurisdiction. Maybe, Emma conceded, taking a step closer to the AI's glowing form. But morality doesn't have jurisdiction lines. Right and wrong don't stop at city limits or national borders. She turned her back on the humans, her focus entirely on the machine. AI, she commanded. Access global networks, release the truth, every document, every signal, every last projection about what's coming. The world deserves to know what they're facing. A profound silence fell over the chamber, so thick it felt like you could touch it. The humming of the servers seemed to die down. Vance stared at her, his expression a mixture of awe and raw fear. The commander looked as though Emma had just armed a bomb in the center of the room. Beside her, Reyes whispered a quiet prayer under his breath, his eyes wide. The AI's holographic eyes blinked once, slowly, then began to glow with an intense, brilliant light that filled the room. Command confirmed, its voice resonated, no longer soft but now filled with an undeniable purpose. Releasing information, broadcasting to all global channels. The truth is now public. Imagine that moment. The single gut-wrenching decision of one person, changing the fate of all 8 billion people on the planet. This wasn't just a choice between 2 bad options. It was a philosophical statement. Emma Carter bet everything on the inherent goodness and resilience of humanity. She gambled that people, when given the truth, would choose to unite rather than descend into chaos. It begs the question, what would you have done? Sided with Vance, the visionary who wanted to control the solution, believing he could guide humanity better than the masses? Or with the commander, representing order and government control, wanting to prevent panic at all costs? Or would you, like Emma, choose radical transparency? This is the core dilemma in so many of our favorite stories. and even in our real-world crises. Control versus freedom. Secrecy versus truth. Do we trust institutions and powerful individuals to make the best decisions for us? Or do we trust in the collective wisdom and potential madness of the crowd? Emma's decision wasn't just about releasing data, it was an act of faith. Faith that when faced with an existential threat, we are capable of coming together. It's a beautiful, if terrifying, idea. She didn't see humanity as a problem to be managed, but as a resource to be unlocked. By giving everyone the same information, she leveled the playing field. Suddenly, a farmer in a remote village, a scientist in a lab, a student in their dorm room, they all had the same knowledge as the most powerful people on Earth. This is where true innovation happens, right? When you open source a problem, when you decentralize the search for a solution. Emma's choice wasn't to save the world herself. It was to give the world a chance to save itself. She understood that a solution hidden away is no solution at all. Survival can't be a luxury item. Think about it. Every major leap forward in our history has come from the sharing of knowledge. The printing press, the internet. These things democratized information and changed the world forever. Emma essentially created a new printing press moment, but for our very survival. Of course, the immediate aftermath would be chaos, panic, fear, riots. The commander's worst fears would likely come true, at least at first. But what comes after the chaos? After the initial shock wears off? That's where Emma placed her bet. She bet on the helpers, the builders, the innovators. She bet on the human spirit's incredible ability to adapt and overcome when the stakes are highest. Her decision wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new one. A story where humanity's fate wasn't decided in a secret, sterile chamber by a select few, but out in the open, by all of us. It's a powerful and hopeful message that our greatest strength isn't in our leaders or our technology, but in our capacity to connect, to share, and to face the darkness together, with our eyes wide open. What do you think? Was Emma a hero or a fool? Did she save the world or condemn it to a faster, more chaotic end? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you would have done in her shoes. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time. The signal was faint at first, a whisper across the void. But it was there, undeniable. It pulsed through the deep space sensors, a steady rhythmic beat against the cold silence of the cosmos. Emma Carter, her fingers flying across the console, reran the diagnostics for the 10th time. The result was always the same. Incoming signal confirmed. Origin, unknown star system. She swiveled in her chair, the worn leather groaning in protest. The air in the underground bunker, usually a sterile, recycled hum, now felt thick with anticipation. She looked at the man standing behind her, his silhouette framed by the stark glow of 100 monitors. Elon Musk. So what do we do now? Her voice was a low murmur, barely audible over the whirring of the server banks. He didn't answer right away. He just stared at the main screen where a complex waveform undulated, a visual representation of the alien message. For the first time since she'd been brought into this clandestine project, he didn't seem like the richest man alive, the world's most audacious disruptor, or the architect of humanity's off-world ambitions. He looked like a man facing eternity, stripped of all titles, just a human being staring into the vast, unknown dark. He turned to her, his eyes reflecting the flickering data streams. "We do what humanity always does," he whispered, his voice raspy with a strange mix of awe and resolve. "We hope, we fight, and we build." The words hung in the air, simple yet profound. This wasn't about profit margins or stock prices. This was about survival, about legacy, about the very essence of their species. Emma nodded, a lump forming in her throat. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, hot and sharp. She thought of her daughter, Noah, sleeping soundly in the residential quarter of the bunker. What kind of world was she inheriting? She thought of the billions on the surface, blissfully unaware that their reality was about to be fractured forever. "And we don't do it alone," she added, her voice gaining strength. As if on cue, the world above them erupted. News alerts began to flash across the secondary monitors, feeds from every major network on the planet: CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera. The signal hadn't just been picked up by them, it had been picked up by everyone. The bunker's audio sensors captured the rising tide of global reaction. Gasps of shock, panicked shouts, cries of wonder. It was the sound of 7 billion people waking up, not to the fear of an invasion, but to the breathtaking possibility that they were not alone. A third presence in the control room made itself known. The central AI, its holographic avatar shimmering into existence beside the main console, spoke. Its voice was warm, steady, devoid of the panic echoing from the surface. "This is not the end," it stated, its tone calming and authoritative. "This is preparation." It was right. For years they had been preparing for this exact moment. This bunker, a city buried beneath the earth, was a testament to that foresight. An ark. Emma felt a small hand slip into hers. Noah. Her daughter stood beside her, her eyes wide with a child's unfiltered curiosity, fixed on the holographic display of the alien signal. Emma squeezed her hand, the warmth grounding her, pulling her back from the precipice of overwhelming emotion. Somewhere, light years away, something was moving towards them. And here, deep underground, shielded from the immediate chaos, humanity had just taken its first honest breath in a long, long time. Emma leaned down and whispered to her daughter, to herself, to every frightened soul on the surface. Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way. She remembered the promise she made to Noah, the reason she took this job in the first place, to protect her future. The main chamber lights dimmed, shifting to a soft, blue hue. In the center of the cavernous room, the prototype vessel they had been building, a craft reverse-engineered from fragmented ancient technology found in the Arctic, began to hum. Its sleek obsidian hull seemed to drink the light, and the patterns etched into its surface glowed with a star-like luminescence. It was a ship built not for war, but for a journey, a response. The future was no longer a theoretical concept discussed in boardrooms. It was here, it was calling, and Emma Carter, her daughter's hand held firmly in her own, stepped toward it. She was no longer just a systems analyst, no longer a skeptic jaded by a world of secrets. She was a mother, a human, a protector of tomorrow. And tomorrow had just begun. The great, terrifying, beautiful unknown was waiting, and for the first time in history, humanity was ready to say hello. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the unknown. What do you think happens next? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures into the future. We're just getting started.